The hall was filled with bright lights and echoing voices. Hundreds of alien males stood tall, their shining eyes fixed on the stage. At the center of the hall stood a small figure trembling. She was different. She was tiny compared to the others, her body slim and fragile. She had dreamed of this day for many years. She had hoped someone would choose her, someone would see her. But now, as she stood there, she felt every stare burn with judgment. One by one, the alien males looked at her and turned away. Some laughed softly. Others whispered cruel words. She is too weak. She cannot fight. She is worthless. The words cut deep. Her heart pounded. She kept waiting. Maybe one of them would step forward. Maybe one of them would offer his hand. But the silence grew heavier. The council leader raised his voice. Do any of you accept her? The hall remained quiet. No one moved. Not a single alien male spoke for her. Her chest tightened. She felt tears pushing at her eyes, but she did not let them fall. If she cried, they would only laugh louder. She tried to stand tall, but her knees shook. She had been rejected, not by one, not by two, but by all. Every alien male in the hall had turned her away. The leader's voice was cold. Then it is decided. She is unchosen. Laughter spread through the crowd. The sound felt like knives piercing her skin. She wanted to run, but her feet stayed frozen on the floor. For years, she had tried to be strong. For years, she had trained, hoping someone would notice her heart, her spirit. But here, in front of everyone, she was invisible. She walked slowly down from the stage. Her hands trembled, but she held her head high. If no one wanted her, then she would not beg. She would not give them the pleasure of seeing her break. Outside the hall, the stars glittered in the dark sky. She looked up at them with heavy eyes. The galaxy was vast, filled with endless worlds, but in this moment she felt smaller than ever before. Why? She whispered to herself. Why am I never enough? Her voice was lost in the wind. As she walked alone through the alien city, she could still hear the laughter. Every step echoed with shame. Shops closed their doors when she passed. Children pointed at her. To them, she was a failure, a reminder of weakness. She sat on the edge of a cold stone wall, staring at the busy streets. Couples walked together. Families laughed. Soldiers marched. Everyone had a place. Everyone but her. Her mind returned to an old story she had once overheard. A story about a strange species called humans. They were rare in this part of the galaxy. Dangerous, some said. Unpredictable. But others whispered something different. They said humans were strange because they cared. They said humans had a heart unlike any other race. She wondered if it was true. Could such beings exist? Would they see her differently? The night grew colder. She pulled her arms around herself, trying to feel safe. For a moment she thought of giving up, of ending the pain once and for all. No one would care. No one would miss her. But then, deep inside, a spark of defiance stirred. She was still alive. As long as she breathed, there was a chance. A chance to prove she was not worthless. She stood up. Her eyes turned again to the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the cruel laughter and cold stares, there had to be something more. She whispered, I will not give up. Not yet. Her journey began that night. With no home and no family, she stepped onto a transport ship, leaving behind the planet that had rejected her. The stars stretched endlessly before her, silent and mysterious. She did not know where she was going. She did not know who she would meet. But her heart carried a question, a hope. Would anyone ever see her worth? The ship drifted into the darkness of space. Other passengers ignored her. To them she was nothing. But inside her chest her heart beat with quiet fire. As the engines roared and the stars blurred into lines, she closed her eyes. She dreamed of a face she had never seen, a human face. She imagined someone who would look at her not with disgust, not with rejection, but with kindness. She did not know if such a person truly existed, but the thought was enough to keep her alive. The galaxy had turned her away. Every alien male had despised her. But her story was not over. Somewhere out there in the endless night, a new path waited. And though she could not see it yet, fate had already begun to move. A meeting was coming. A choice was waiting, and her life would never be the same again. The stars stretched endlessly around her as the small transport ship glided through the void. For most passengers, space was routine. For her, it was exile. She sat at the very back, alone, her eyes fixed on the window. Planets and moons passed by, glowing like lanterns in the night, but none of them felt like home. She was the one no one wanted, the one left behind. the one despised. Every alien male in her world had rejected her, and the shame clung to her like a shadow. The journey was silent, but inside her heart there was a storm. She had left her home because she could no longer breathe under their laughter. But the galaxy was vast, and she was only a fragile wanderer. On the second day of travel, the ship docked at a trade station. Merchants shouted, offering glowing fruits and weapons. Soldiers stomped in groups. Families moved together. She walked among them, invisible, clutching the last few coins she owned. She bought a small piece of bread and sat quietly in a corner. No one looked at her. No one spoke to her. To them, she was nothing. But in the crowd, she heard something that caught her breath. A group of alien traders whispered near her table. Humans are dangerous. They fight even when they are weak. But they protect their own. Strange creatures. Strange hearts. Her eyes widened. Humans again. Always in whispers, always half-believed. Were they truly real? Could such beings care when even her own kind had turned her away? The thought stayed with her when she boarded another ship. This one was smaller, carrying only a handful of travelers. The air smelled of rust and oil. The captain barked at everyone to stay quiet. She kept to herself, but her heart beat faster. For 3 nights she dreamed of humans. She dreamed of someone who would look at her with eyes full of kindness instead of disgust. She dreamed of someone who would fight for her, not laugh at her. But dreams were fragile. Reality was cruel. On the 4th day, alarms screamed across the ship. Red lights flashed. The passengers shouted in fear. "Pirates!" the captain cried. Her body froze. The ship shook as enemy fire struck its hull. Pirates boarded quickly, tall, armored creatures with sharp teeth and cruel eyes. They searched the passengers, stealing valuables, mocking the weak. One pirate grabbed her arm roughly. "Nothing here," he spat, throwing her to the floor. They didn't even think she was worth robbing. The humiliation cut deeper than their claws. But when they left, the damage was done. The ship was broken. The engines burned. The captain tried to control the fire, but it was useless. The passengers screamed as escape pods were launched. She ran for one, but it was already full. Another closed before her eyes. At last, she found a small pod, almost broken but still working. She climbed inside, pressed the button, and the pod shot into space. The stars spun around her. The pod shook violently. A warning light blinked red. Oxygen low. Engine failing. She closed her eyes. Was this how her story ended? Rejected, unwanted, and now lost in space? The pod screamed through the atmosphere of a nearby planet. Heat burned the metal walls. She held her breath, clutching the seat until with a thunderous crash the pod hit the ground. Silence followed. Smoke filled the air. Slowly, trembling, she pushed open the hatch. The sky above was red and gold. Strange trees with glowing leaves swayed in the wind. The air was heavy but breathable. She stumbled out, falling onto the grass. Her body ached, but she was alive. She looked around the empty forest. The planet seemed untouched, quiet, safe, but then she felt it. A presence. A shadow moved among the trees. Someone was watching her. Her heart pounded as she staggered back. From the smoke, a figure appeared, not alien, not like the others she had always known. Broad shoulders, strong stance, eyes that burned with alertness. A weapon in his hand, a human. She froze. Every story she had ever heard rushed through her mind. Dangerous, fierce, protective, strange. The human raised his weapon, aiming at her chest. His eyes narrowed, scanning her carefully. For a long moment, neither moved. The forest was silent except for the rustle of leaves. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, to explain, but no words came. Would he kill her? Would he turn away like the rest? The human's voice was low and sharp. "Who are you?" Her heart thudded painfully. She had finally found one. A human. But was he salvation or her end? Smoke still curled from the crashed escape pod as she stood trembling before the human. His tall frame blocked the sunlight, his shadow stretching across the ground. The weapon in his hands gleamed coldly. Aimed directly at her chest, her heart raced. This was the moment she had imagined many times. Humans, mysterious, dangerous, unpredictable. Now one stood before her, close enough to end her life with a single pull of the trigger. The human's voice was steady, deep. "Who are you? And why are you here?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Fear pressed against her throat like a hand. "Speak," he demanded. His eyes narrowed, sharp as steel. Finally, her voice broke free, soft and shaking. I am no one. My ship, it was attacked. I had no choice." The human studied her, his weapon still raised. He didn't move. He didn't blink. It felt like he could see straight through her soul. She lowered her eyes, whispering, "Please, I do not wish to harm you. I only wish to live." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. The forest around them rustled with the wind, but neither moved. Then slowly the human lowered his weapon. His eyes, though still cautious, softened a little. "You're not armed," he said, "and you don't look like much of a threat." Her chest rose with shaky relief, but his next words chilled her again. "But I don't trust you." He gestured for her to follow, keeping a close watch on her. With no other choice, she obeyed. Her legs trembled as she walked behind him through the glowing forest. The air smelled of earth and metal, strange yet alive. They reached a small shelter built from wreckage and steel. Smoke rose from a fire pit outside. Inside, she could see machines, tools, and strange supplies. The human stepped inside, motioning for her to sit by the fire. He placed his weapon carefully within reach and began speaking again. "You're lucky," he said flatly. "This planet isn't friendly. Wild creatures, storms, raiders. Most don't survive a night." She looked down at her hands. I have survived worse." He raised an eyebrow. "Worse? You don't look like a fighter." His words pierced her like knives. The same words she had heard from her own kind. Weak. Worthless. She clenched her fists, fighting tears. "I fought every day," she whispered. "Not with strength, but with will. And still, no one saw me." The human watched her silently. For the first time, his eyes did not carry judgment. Instead, there was something else, curiosity. "What do you mean, no one saw you?" he asked. She hesitated, but the truth spilled from her lips. "My people rejected me. Every male turned away. I was nothing to them. So I left." The human leaned back against the wall of the shelter. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. "Rejected by your own people," he said quietly. "That's why you're here." She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." The fire crackled between them. For a moment there was no sound but the flames. Then the human sighed. "I don't like aliens," he said honestly. "They took everything from me once. My home, my family. I swore I'd never trust one again." Her chest tightened. So this was it. He would cast her out just like the others. But then his voice changed, softer, almost uncertain. "And yet, here you are, alone, unarmed, broken. You're not like the others I've seen." She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "Because I am weaker?" she asked bitterly. His gaze didn't waver. "No, because you're still standing." Her breath caught. No one had ever said such words to her before. The night grew darker. Strange cries echoed from the forest, sharp and haunting. The human tossed her a blanket. "Stay here tonight. The beasts hunt in packs. If you go out, you won't survive." She held the blanket close, warmth filling her chest. For the first time in her life, someone had offered her shelter. Not out of duty, but choice. Yet doubt still lingered. Would he truly accept her? Or was this only temporary kindness? As she lay near the fire, pretending to sleep, she heard his voice again. Low. Quiet. Speaking not to her, but to his AI system, a small device glowing near the wall. "She's not safe to keep here," he whispered. "But why? Why do I feel like I must protect her?" Her eyes widened. She pulled the blanket closer, her heart pounding. The human did not trust her. But something inside him was changing. And she knew in that moment that her story with him was only beginning. The night was long and heavy. The fire inside the shelter burned low, casting shadows on the walls. She lay wrapped in the blanket, pretending to sleep, but her heart refused to rest. Every word the human had whispered to his AI replayed in her mind. "She's not safe to keep here. But why do I feel like I must protect her?" Those words were a mystery. He did not trust her. Yet some hidden force held him back from sending her away. The forest outside whispered with the sound of creatures moving in the dark. The human sat near the doorway, weapon in hand, eyes always scanning the shadows. His face was hard, but behind his eyes was something deeper. A storm he carried inside. Dawn came with a pale red sky. She woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of distant engines. The human stiffened, standing quickly. "They're coming," he muttered. She sat up, confused. "Who?" Before he could answer, the sound grew louder. Hoverbikes roared through the forest. Figures appeared, armored and cruel, raiders. Her blood ran cold. These were the same kind who had attacked her ship. The human's jaw tightened. He loaded his weapon, his eyes never leaving the trees. "Stay inside," he ordered, but the raiders were fast. Within moments, they surrounded the shelter. Their leader, tall and scarred, stepped forward with a cruel grin. "Well, what do we have here?" the raider sneered. His eyes landed on her. The little reject, worthless even to her own kind, and now hiding with a human. How pathetic, the others laughed. The words stabbed her heart like knives. The human stepped forward, weapon raised. "She's under my protection." The raider laughed louder. "Protection? She's nothing. Give her to us, human, and we'll let you live. She doesn't belong anywhere. Not with us, not with you." The air grew still. Her chest tightened as she looked at the human. Would he betray her? Would he throw her out to save himself? The raiders jeered. "Come on, human. Don't waste your bullets on trash." The human's eyes flickered, his face unreadable. For a terrible moment she thought he might agree. Why should he risk his life for her? She was no one, worthless, rejected. Her heart sank. This was the same pain she had felt on her world. No one chose her. No one ever would, but then the human spoke. His voice was sharp, steady, and filled with fire. "No." The raiders froze. "She stays," he said. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." Her breath caught in her throat. He had chosen her. The leader's grin vanished. His eyes narrowed. "Then you die with her." The forest exploded with chaos. The raiders attacked, their bikes circling, weapons firing. The human moved like lightning, firing back, every shot precise. He pushed her behind cover, shielding her with his own body. The battle was fierce. The human fought with skill born of survival, his face hard with determination. He was only one man, but he refused to fall. She watched in awe, her heart pounding. No one had ever stood for her. No one had ever risked their life for her. But this human, this stranger, fought as if her life mattered. The fight raged until at last the raiders, bloodied and broken, fled into the forest, shouting threats of return. The ground was littered with broken machines and scorched earth. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of the human's heavy breathing. He lowered his weapon slowly, his arm bleeding from a cut. She ran to him, eyes wide with fear. "You are hurt." "It's nothing," he said, brushing it off. His voice was rough, but his eyes softened when they met hers. She reached out, hesitating, then touched his arm gently. No one has ever done this for me. You could have given me to them. You could have saved yourself." The human shook his head. "That's not who I am." Her throat tightened. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of shame this time. They were tears of something new. Hope. "You are different," she whispered. "You see me when no one else does." The human looked away, his jaw tightening again as if fighting an inner war. "Don't thank me yet. This galaxy is not kind. They will come back, stronger." She nodded, determination rising in her chest. "Then I will fight too." He gave her a long, searching look. For a moment silence stretched between them. Then for the first time a faint smile touched his lips. "Maybe," he said quietly. "You're stronger than you believe." Her heart raced. For the first time in her life, she was not a burden. She was not worthless. Someone had chosen to stand beside her. The forest wind carried away the smoke and the sun rose higher. The danger was not over, but a new bond had been forged, one that even the galaxy's cruelty could not break. The sun climbed higher, burning away the smoke of battle. The shelter stood damaged, the ground around it scarred from the fight. She sat by the fire, watching the human clean his wounds with steady hands. His face remained calm, but his body carried the marks of the struggle. "Why did you fight for me?" she asked softly. The human didn't look up. "Because it was the right thing to do." "But I am nothing to you," she whispered. "You don't even trust me." He paused, then finally raised his eyes. They were sharp, but there was something else hiding in them. A quiet strength, a weight of pain. "Trust is earned," he said. "But worth can be seen." Her chest tightened. For the first time, someone had spoken as if her life had value. That night, they sat together by the fire. The forest around them was alive with strange sounds, distant roars, the hiss of creatures moving in the dark. The human built the flames higher, his weapon always nearby. She studied him quietly, his scars, his rough hands, his guarded eyes. He was unlike any male she had ever seen. The aliens of her world had mocked her, rejected her, turned their backs. But this human, he stayed. He fought. When the wind grew cold, he tossed her another blanket without a word. She pulled it close, warmth flooding her chest. It wasn't just the fire that kept her alive tonight, it was him. Days passed. The raiders did not return, but danger was never far away. Together, they left the broken shelter and began moving across the wild lands. Storms swept through the skies, lightning splitting the clouds. Strange beasts prowled, their glowing eyes watching from the trees. They faced everything side by side. When a pack of wild creatures attacked, the human fired quickly, his movements sharp and precise. She, though afraid, picked up a fallen branch and struck one away from him. For the first time, she felt the rush of courage. When the storms came, they built a small cave shelter together. She carried stones, gathered branches, and worked by his side. He watched her closely, surprised at her will. "You're not as weak as you think," he said one night. She smiled faintly, though her eyes lowered. "You are the first to ever say that." On the third evening, as they shared the last of their food, he spoke again, his voice quieter. "You said your people rejected you," he said. "All of them?" "Yes," she whispered. Her voice shook, but she continued. "I was small, weaker than the others. They laughed at me. No one chose me. To them I was useless." His eyes darkened. He looked away, the firelight reflecting in his gaze. "I know that pain," he said at last. "My people, my family, were taken from me by aliens. They said humans were weak. They said we didn't belong in their galaxy. I lost everything because of them." She stared at him, her heart heavy. "So that is why you don't trust aliens." He nodded slowly. "Yes, but you're not like them." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to tell him how much those words meant, but her voice refused to come. Instead, she only whispered, "Thank you." As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew stronger. They laughed sometimes, small moments in the middle of hardship. She stumbled while climbing rocks, and he caught her, shaking his head with a faint smile. He shared stories of Earth, of oceans and forests unlike anything she had seen. She listened with wide eyes as if he were telling her about a dream. In return, she told him of her world, the cold judgment of her people, the endless weight of being unwanted. He listened quietly, his face unreadable, but his silence carried respect. At night, when fear pressed in, he always stood guard. She began to sleep more peacefully, knowing he was near. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. One evening, as the firelight flickered between them, she asked, "Why do you protect me when everyone else would leave me behind?" He stared into the flames for a long moment before answering, "Because I know what it feels like to be left behind. And because maybe I see something in you that they never did." Her heart raced. The fire crackled louder, as if echoing his words. For so long she had been despised, invisible, forgotten. But here, in the quiet of the forest, with a human beside her, she felt something she had never known. Hope. The night stretched on, filled with mystery and silence. She lay near the fire, her eyes drifting closed. For the first time, her dreams were not filled with rejection or fear. In her dreams, she stood not alone but with him, side by side, facing the galaxy together, and when she woke, the human was still there, sitting watch, his weapon resting across his lap, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had not left. He had not abandoned her. And in that moment she knew. The bond between them was no accident. It was the beginning of something greater. The days turned into weeks. The human and the tiny alien traveled together, moving across forests, rivers, and strange valleys filled with glowing plants. Danger followed them, but so did something else, trust. What began as fear slowly became companionship. What began as silence slowly became laughter. But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, they reached a ruined outpost. Its walls were cracked, but light still burned inside. The human's eyes narrowed. This place, it's not abandoned. They stepped carefully inside, and soon they were surrounded. Soldiers in dark armor aimed weapons at them. At the front stood tall alien council guards, their helmets shining with authority. Her heart froze. These were the council's men, the same rulers who had once declared her worthless. One of the guards stepped forward, his voice cold. "You do not belong here, little one. You were cast out, and now we find you with a human." His tone dripped with disgust at the word. She trembled, her hands curling into fists. "I have done nothing wrong." The guard ignored her, turning to the human. "Leave her with us. She is a disgrace to her kind, a burden to yours. Walk away, human, and no harm will come to you." The air grew tense. Weapons hummed with deadly power. Soldiers waited for the human's answer. Her chest tightened. This was it, the moment of truth. Would he give her up? Would he finally see what the others saw, someone unworthy of his fight? The human stood tall, his eyes hard as steel. He glanced at her briefly, and in that look she saw the weight of his choice. He could save himself. He could walk away, but then his voice cut through the silence like thunder. No, the soldier shifted, surprised. She stays with me, the human said firmly. You rejected her, abandoned her, and now you expect me to betray her too? I won't, the guard's eyes narrowed. You risk your life for nothing. She is weak. She is despised. Why choose her? The human's voice rose with fire. Because I see her worth where none of you ever did. Her breath caught. The words struck her heart like lightning. For so long she had waited for someone to say them, and now, here in the face of danger, he had. The guard snarled. Then you are a fool. And fools must be punished. Blades and weapons lifted. The soldiers began to advance. The human raised his weapon, stepping forward. Then try me. The standoff burned with tension. She clutched her chest, torn between fear and pride. He had chosen. Chosen her over safety, over the council, over his own survival. A storm of voices filled her head, memories of rejection, laughter, cruel words. But now, for the first time, another voice cut through them. His voice, strong, defiant. You are not worthless. Her hands shook. She wanted to speak, to stand beside him, but fear held her still. Then deep inside, something changed. She remembered the beasts they had fought, the storms they had survived, the nights by the fire where she had laughed and lived without shame. She was not the same broken creature who had walked away from the council halls. She was more. She stepped forward, standing at the human's side. Her voice, though trembling, was steady. If he fights, I fight. If you call me worthless, then let me prove you wrong. The guards hesitated. They had expected her to hide, to beg. But now she stood tall, fire in her eyes. The human gave her a quick look, half surprised, half proud. Then his lips curved into the faintest smile. The council soldiers hissed in anger. So be it. You have chosen your path. The air cracked with energy as weapons powered up. The battle had not yet begun, but the choice was made. There was no turning back. Together, human and alien stood side by side facing the storm. For the first time in her life, she was not alone, and as the soldiers closed in, her fear melted into something else, courage. Whatever came next, she would no longer be unseen. She would no longer be despised because someone at last had seen her worth, and she would fight to keep it. The council soldiers tightened their circle, weapons glowing with deadly energy. The air was heavy, charged like a storm ready to break. She stood at the human's side, her heart racing but her feet steady. For the first time, she was not hiding. The guard leader sneered. You both will fall. A weak alien female and a foolish human. Nothing more. The human's jaw clenched, his weapon raised. We are more than enough. With a cry, the soldiers rushed forward. The battle erupted in a storm of fire and steel. The human moved like a force of nature, swift, fierce, precise. Every shot of his weapon struck true. Every step he took shielding her from harm. But he was only one man and the soldiers were many. She felt fear claw at her chest, but something stronger rose inside her. Courage. She grabbed a fallen staff from the ground and swung it at a soldier who broke through the line. He staggered back, shocked, her voice shook, but it was fierce. I will not be invisible anymore. The human glanced at her between shots, surprise flashing in his eyes. But also pride. The battle raged on. The ground shook. Sparks filled the air and the sound of clashing weapons echoed like thunder. She fought clumsily but with determination. Each strike she made pushed away years of shame, each scream tore down the walls built by rejection. At last, the leader stepped forward, his blade glowing. He pointed it at the human. You cannot win. You protect nothing but weakness. The human's voice thundered back. She is stronger than any of you will ever be. The leader lunged. The clash was brutal, steel against steel, sparks flying. The human blocked, countered, but the leader was powerful. Blow after blow pressed him back. She watched in horror as the human fell to one knee, blood staining his side. No, she cried. Without thinking, she ran forward, placing herself between them. The leader's blade paused inches from her chest. The leader laughed coldly. You would die for him? You, the one we cast aside. Her voice rang out, clear and defiant. Yes, because he saw my worth when none of you would. And I see his. For a moment, silence fell across the battlefield. Even the soldiers hesitated. The leader snarled and raised his blade to strike. But before he could, the human surged up with the last of his strength. With a roar, he drove his weapon forward, striking true. The leader collapsed, defeated. The remaining soldiers froze. Their leader was fallen. One by one, they lowered their weapons and retreated into the shadows. Their eyes filled with fear and disbelief. The battle was over. She dropped to her knees beside the human, her hands trembling as she pressed against his wound. "Stay with me, please." "You cannot leave me now." His eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. A faint smile curved his lips. You're stronger than you know." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but they were not tears of despair. They were tears of love, of hope, of victory. "You gave me a reason to fight," she whispered. "You gave me a reason to live." The human reached up, his hand brushing her cheek. "And you reminded me why humans never give up. Even in the darkest places we fight. Not for power, not for glory, for each other." Her heart swelled. In his eyes she saw no rejection, no mockery. She saw only truth, only love. The sun broke through the clouds, golden light spilling across the ruined outpost. Together they stood, weak but unbroken. For her, this was redemption. She was no longer the despised, the forgotten, the rejected. She was chosen, not because of strength or beauty, but because someone had seen her heart. For him, this was healing. After years of loss and pain, he had found someone worth protecting, worth standing beside. They looked at the horizon, endless stars waiting beyond. The galaxy still held danger, cruelty, and war, but they would face it together. Hand in hand, she whispered softly, "I was nothing to them, but to you, I am everything." And the human, with a voice steady as stone, replied, "You were never nothing. You were always enough." The stars above burned brighter, as if the universe itself bore witness to their bond. Their journey was far from over, but their love had already changed everything. From rejection came redemption. From loneliness came love. And together, human and alien would write a story the galaxy would never forget.